Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Oneeka Williams. Welcome back to the Ecosystem series. I am your healer, positivity catalyst, storyteller, and teacher. And I really hope that you guys are enjoying this series. I hope that you're enjoying the beautiful scenery that have become part of the series. And I'm really excited to continue to share with you some strategies and thoughts around developing an ecosystem of learning. I really have been just very blessed by your feedback, and I hope that you're continuing to find this information valuable and something that you can apply. And the purpose of our ecosystem series is to integrate all of the components that contribute to a rich learning experience and successful outcomes. So that is marrying the academic and intellectual rigor with the social, emotional, with the physical and physiologic components of learning, and of essentially creating an environment where mentally, emotionally, physically, and intellectually, all of those components are addressed to facilitate an integrated and holistic learning experience. So today we are going to be talking about the S in ecosystem. And the S represents to stimulating critical thinking. And critical thinking is essential to any learning environment because what it requires is the ability to integrate, first of all, to acquire information, to integrate that information into a process, and then to be able to apply that information to making good decisions. And what that looks like in the learning environment is, number one, the ability to, how do you even acquire information? How do you acquire knowledge? So the openness to being able to find information, look for information, being able to be discerning about the sources of information, being able to think critically, in other words, assess, is a source of information a credible source? Is that source of information a source that is trustworthy? And is that source of information a source that actually comes from a place of one where that knowledge is a knowledge that you actually think is based and rooted in some very sturdy or steady foundation of actual knowledge? Is it hearsay, or is there factual information that is a part of that, the knowledge that is being shared with you? So critical thinking allows you to assess where is the information, the source of information coming from. And then you have to be able to put the information together, integrate it with either information and knowledge that you have gained from other places, information that you have had access to in other situations, experiences that you have had. You're able to integrate that information with what you already know, and then you're able to apply that process to make a decision based on the information that you have acquired. The important part of critical thinking is the understanding and the acknowledgement that emotions will sometimes play a role in the way that you think, but being able to extract the emotion out of the process and being able to really look at the material, at the facts, at the information in an objective way, so that you're able to come to a decision that is based not just on a personal bias or a personal belief, but information and knowledge and decisions that are rooted in a clear, reproducible, and consistent process by which you evaluate. So within a classroom, and certainly within a work environment, we want to be able to establish a process where there is critical thinking that is germane to any set of decisions. In the classroom, students will ask insightful questions. They will learn how to acquire knowledge. They will learn how to have open dialogue where even if opinions are different from their own, they are able to respect and engage in a conversation and in a dialogue that helps them to extract information that then informs the type of decisions that they make. Now, if students or employees don't develop a process of critical thinking, what does that look like? It certainly can create an environment that is very scattered, in which there's seems to be a lot of confusion. Certainly, students will be closed-minded, that there will be very narrow and superficial discussions within class. There will be a lack of depth of conversation. Students rush to judgment and they don't apply a very critical lens to how they essentially review information, and that can also present itself as a very limited experience for the classroom because you don't have the type of dialogue that is rich. There is an environment where there is limited dialogue, where students are not open to considering others' opinions. There is an environment where students even become arrogant and feel as if they know it all, and as such it limits the opportunities for growth. Students tend to make rushed decisions. They tend to be very resistant to change, and this really limits the ability of everyone's growth within the classroom. The classroom becomes a place that feels very stifling, and it does not become a place where there is a sense of connection. And so applying the importance of critical thinking to making decisions helps students to really grow these skills that allows them to relate to one another and to interact in a way that helps to advance their own learning. One of the metrics that we use worldwide to assess the status of educational achievement is the PISA evaluation, and that is the Program for International Student Assessment. And the US has fallen in the mid-range for math, science, and reading, which is surprising given that we spend the most money per student for education. Discouraging as those statistics are, based on the amount of money that is invested in the educational system, one of the things that has been clear is that the educational system that supports and encourages problem solving and critical thinking results in an employability of the workforce, which creates more innovation, creates more creativity, and creates a workforce that has much more kind of opportunities and demonstrates much more capabilities for entrepreneurship and for building new business and for bringing new ways of thinking into our economy and into our academic environment. So the role of critical thinking as a foundation, as a pillar for building towards a population that continues to problem solve, that continues to innovate, that continues to create, and that continues to be on the leading edge of the world stage for new technologies and new advancements, continues to be something, or is something, that is very encouraging, despite the fact that we have a lot of room left to grow in our achievement standards and metrics in science, mathematics, and reading. What are some of the things that you can do? We have developed the WEAM, the Williams Integrated Educational Model Critical Thinking Scale. You can find this assessment tool on our website, and we will also have a downloadable option after this video so that you can take the critical thinking scale and see where you fall in that metric. There are also any number of approaches that helps with critical thinking, and I think that it first starts at home. As you work with your children, as you work with your students, as you work within the classroom, as you work within the work environment, it is important to create and establish a process. It is important not to be autocratic, and it's important not to just be prescriptive and not to just tell your students, tell your children, tell your employees what to do, but it is important to engage them in a process. It is important to identify what the goal is. It is important to identify what the challenge is. And then it is important to create a forum to explore what are the considerations that revolve around whatever is being assessed, so that you can then engage them in this process of, here is the information that is at hand. Here is the goal we're trying to achieve. Here are the various sources that have provided this particular information. And how do we weigh, balance, how do we pull all of this information in, how do we integrate it, and how do we subject it to an objective process that allows us to come to a decision. This is very, very important. It is a process and it is an approach that can be learned, but it requires practice. So the steps to critical thinking is first to just assess the information, to write down, what do you know? Second, what is the source of that information? Is that information credible or not? Third, is how do you feel about the information? Because first you have to be able at least to acknowledge what your emotional response to the information is, so that you're able to apply almost a, you're able to filter what your emotion is, and you're able to separate that from whatever the decision is that needs to be made. And then you are able to, after you have evaluated, internalized, researched, gathered all of your information, you have taken your emotion out of it, then you're able to list the number of possible decisions that you could come to. It's not always one decision. There's usually a range of decisions that you can apply. Write down those lists of decisions and then filter the decisions through what decision, based on the information that I have just, and the process that I have just engaged in, which of these decisions makes the most sense given the information that you have. So there's always a process that you should engage in, whether the decision seems to be a simple and small decision or whether it's a complicated decision, because it allows you to establish a process and an approach that you can then apply across the board. Critical thinking, stimulating critical thinking, is an important part of your ecosystem for learning, because it equips students or employees to come up with a decision that best serves the goal that they're trying to achieve, and that allows for an objective decision, and one that is not tainted by bias and emotion. I'm Dr. Oneeka Williams. Thank you so much for joining the Ecosystem for Learning series. I hope that you continue to apply some of these techniques and strategies to your environment of learning. And please remember that there is a downloadable resource after this series, and that you can also go to the website to find the strategies. The website is www.droneekawilliams.com, and all of the resources that we have discussed in this series will be available on my website. I thank you for joining me in the Ecosystem for Learning, S, which is to stimulate critical thinking, and I look forward to seeing you on the next go around. Please share your feedback. Would love to hear how you're applying some of the things that we have discussed in this series, and certainly please feel free to pass this on to anyone whom you believe it would create some benefit and value. See you next time. Bye.